Hey folks, this is producer JP here. Unfortunately, lawyer Phil today had some duties he had to fulfill, so he will not be here to start the show. He should be here, keyword should be here at some point throughout the show. But in the meantime, we're going to be playing a best of from last Thursday's show where I had a great monologue, so you make sure to stay tuned for that. And stay tuned throughout the show, and hopefully Phil will pop in back in soon. But here's a best of in the meantime.
This past Tuesday,
you're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Thursday. It is Thursday, and we've rebranded that. We got a new sound effect. We call it Thankful Thursday. So hit it, man.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you!
Nice. Well done. And that is JP pushing buttons on the board. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm great on this Thankful Thursday.
Thankful Thursday, and you haven't even seen Bama play yet.
Nope. And so we got Bama tonight and then the Braves opening day in the middle of the show. So it's going to be a jam-packed sports day for me in terms of...
Stay focused.
Stay focused.
I don't want to see you on your phone over there. All right, we got a great show laid on for you. Halfway through hour number 2, you know the deal. We get to Thankful Thursday, and we ought to bring in 2 of our friends, Butters and Lee. So, yep, we'll do a round of Butters and Lee halfway through hour number 2, so stand by for that one. And then I got a whole triple dipper just filled up with stuff, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, didn't get to it yesterday on purpose because some things changed in the middle of my show, so I had to get some new stuff. Tariff time. Tariff time. Y'all, have you seen? So apparently we are now levying tariffs on automobiles, like 25% tariffs. But what's happening? Is it driving our economy down? Are we in ruination? No, actually, the numbers are all trending up. I'll tell you all about it. Number 1, the Triple Dipper, I'm going to break it down for you, tariff time. All right, number 2, I don't know if you saw yesterday there was a hearing before the brand spanking new DOGE committee in Congress. The DOGE committee, well, they had the audacity to ask, why do we fund NPR? Why do we fund PBS? Oh, we're going to talk about that in detail. Why is it we fund left-leaning activist broadcasting with tax dollars? Well, we may not much longer. Why do we fund NPR? That's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, it's funny. I was getting ready for the show this morning, and I hit a story, into my resourcing, and I went, oh, man, I'm thankful for that. And I thought, oh, it's Thankful Thursday. And then I went, wait a minute. Let's just build a few and do a segment. So I got a whole segment here of stories. I'm calling it Thankful Thursday. Hopefully we can get to it. But yeah, Thankful Thursday, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into the Right Side Way monologue. Listen, you guys are going to want to hear this one. I'm telling you right now, this one's going to make you proud to be an American. But I'll remind you guys also that attorney Stan McDonald is the daily sponsor of the Right Side Way monologue. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, 30-year veteran practice of law, sponsoring daily of the Right Side Way monologue. And I'll tell you more about him here in just a minute. All right, I told you this was going to make you proud. It's also going to make you just stand back in amazement. This past Tuesday was Medal of Honor Recognition Day. I wish I had thought to say something about it that day, but the bottom line is Tuesday was Medal of Honor Recognition Day. So a friend of mine took the group of boys he works with in his trail life troop to do a wreath-laying ceremony at the National Cemetery. He came back, he told me he had been unaware how many Medal of Honor recipients have come from our home state of Alabama. 33 to be exact. I've had the privilege of meeting several of them, and one of them, Green Beret legend Ola Lee Mize, actually had a profound moment to speak into my life. But the Medal of Honor is not something that should be taken for granted. It's our nation's highest award for bravery and valor in combat. Officially, the Medal of Honor is, quote, here's the quote, you ready? The nation's highest military award for valor in combat awarded to members of the armed forces who distinguish themselves conspicuously by gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of their lives above and beyond the call of duty. All right. That's the official, but let me tell you what that means is it requires several things that are external to the person. Obviously, there's a whole lot of what's inside the person that made the medal happen. But the reality is it also has to be surrounded by things that are external to the person. Number one, they have to have been in combat. This is not a peacetime award. They must have also been faced with a massively extreme situation whose outcome was actually shaped by their actions. And it must be witness testimony. They got to have somebody to testify, I saw this happen. And the President of the United States is usually the one who awards it personally because it's that significant. Anybody who is a recipient of the Medal of Honor is also given their own flag. They get a lifetime pension from the U.S. government as thanks for their service. And the wearer of the Medal of Honor is actually due to be saluted by any uniformed personnel, regardless of whether the medal wearer is a lower rank. Basically what that means is that little sky blue ribbon with stars on it means that a general would salute a private. That's huge. It's also honorable. It's also rare. In the history of the United States, there have only been a little over 3,500 recipients total in the history of the United States, despite the fact that millions of Americans have gone to war for our country. But there is one of those 33 recipients from Alabama whose story I want to tell right now. And I do so because it's amazing, but also because of the legacy that he left, and also because I know his family. The man's name was Henry Eugene Irwin, and his friends called him Red. Red Irwin. He was described by those who knew him as a country boy, quiet, unassuming, religiously devout, they said. He was also called the best radio man of the 52nd Bomb Squadron in World War II. Irwin flew with a crew of a B-29 Superfortress that was nicknamed the City of Los Angeles. He was part of the 29th Bombardment Group. And on his 11th combat mission, he and his crew were flying out of Guam to bomb Japanese installations in the Pacific Theater. And part of Irwin's job in the lead B-29 plane was to drop a white phosphorus bomb marker out of a chute near where he sat to mark the assembly area in the air for all the other planes. He'd done it multiple times before, but this time it went badly. Irwin was given the signal to drop the white phosphorus bomb when the city of Los Angeles was off the south coast of Japan. The aircraft was being hit by Japanese anti-aircraft, but they flew on. And Irwin, who had no hat on, no helmet, he was bareheaded, he had his shirt sleeves rolled up, he apparently pulled the pin and released the bomb into the chute, but the fuse malfunctioned and the phosphorus ignited immediately and it began burning at a temperature of like 1,300 degrees. If you're not familiar with white phosphorus, it will burn continually once it hits oxygen. You can't put it out with water. You have to smother it. It will melt metal. It creates massive amounts of thick white smoke. That's why they use it as a marker. The canister, well, it blew back up the chute into Irwin's face. It blinded him. It seared off one of his ears immediately. It filled the B-29 with heavy smoke that obscured the pilot's ability to even fly. The pilot had to put the plane into a dive with the windows open, trying to flush out the smoke so he could see. And despite his massive injuries, though, Red Irwin remained conscious, and he knew the bomb was going to burn through the metal floor and the bomb bay was right below him. It had to be jettisoned or the aircraft and the crew would be lost. Well, by now, he was actually totally blind. But he located the burning bomb on the floor with his hands. He picked it up with his bare hands while it's still burning, and he stumbled forward toward the flight deck, planning on throwing it out the co-pilot's window. But as he groped his way through the plane, his face and arms began to be covered with the ignited phosphorus, it burning into his skin. At one point, he actually had to move some equipment that was in his way, and he remained conscious, but to do so, he had to have both hands. So he actually held the white-hot bomb under his bare right arm while he used his hands to move things out of the way so he could keep moving forward. And when he did that, the phosphorus burned through his flesh and his side straight down to the bones of his ribs. He was a walking torch, they said. But young Red Irwin, he held that burning bomb. And he finally staggered into the cockpit. He threw the bomb out the window and he collapsed between the pilot's seats. Crew members did what they could to extinguish the flames, but they were still burning Irwin's clothing and administered first aid. But every time his burns were uncovered, the phosphorus would react with the air and reignite, and it was smoldering in his skin everywhere. Somehow or another, though, Irwin remained conscious throughout the entire flight back. And the only thing he spoke about during that flight was to ask about the safety and the well-being of the rest of the crew. When he returned back to base for medical help, they didn't expect him to survive. Major General Curtis LeMay and Brigadier General Lawrence Norstad, they asked for a rushed approval of the Medal of Honor so they could present it to him before he died. And in one of the few times that a president was not the one to present the medal, a Medal of Honor was flown out to Guam and presented to him in the hospital there. General Hap Arnold, who was a legend in the Army Air Corps, he wrote to him while he was in the hospital and said, "I regard your act as one of the bravest in the records of this war." But contrary to what everyone thought, Irwin did survive. He was evacuated back to the States. He spent 30 months in rehab and reconstructive surgery. He actually regained his eyesight. He regained the use of one of his arms, and he was promoted to Master Sergeant, and he was discharged in October of 1947, 2 years after the war. For 37 years after that, Red Irwin served as a veterans benefit counselor at the VA hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. But there is, as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story. You see, the legacy that Red Irwin gave is more than just what he did in the war. It was in the legacy that he left to our state and our nation. You see, Red Irwin's son is someone that I've had the pleasure of getting to know. He's Hank Irwin. Hank Irwin, a former Alabama state senator, but Hank Irwin, who is also the central figure in the story of Woodlawn. You may recall Woodlawn. It's the Birmingham school that saw a major revival of Christian faith in the 60s, thanks in large part to Hank Irwin serving as a chaplain there. It became the subject of a movie and a book. Hank Irwin, by the way, also had a very good, solid conservative record in the state Senate when he was there. And in 2010, Hank Irwin, Red Irwin's son, ran for lieutenant governor, but he was beaten in the primary by none other than Kay Ivey. One has to wonder what would have happened if Irwin had beaten Ivey, who went on to take the office of governor when Robert Bentley stepped down. But it doesn't stop there. You see, Hank Irwin's sons, Red Irwin's grandsons, are John and Andrew Irwin, and they are known in the movie industry as the Irwin brothers, and they are famous for restoring faith and values to movie making with hits like the movie Woodlawn, October Baby, I Can Only Imagine, American Underdog, and so many more. Their movie, I Can Only Imagine, is actually the third highest grossing music biopic of all time. And they are currently the producers of the directors of the hit Amazon series House of David, which my wife and I love. The Irwin brothers are award-winning faith-based extensions of the legacy left to them by their grandfather, Red Irwin. And there's a quote I want to read to you. It's attributed to Tecumseh, the Shawnee warrior in chief. I first heard about it in a movie called Act of Valor. It's a note from Tecumseh, allegedly to his own son. He says this, here's the quote. He says, "Live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion. Respect others in their view. Demand that they respect yours. Love your life, perfect your life, beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long in its purpose in the service of your people. When it comes your time to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with the fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives again in a different way. You sing your death song, and you die like a hero going home." Yet Red Irwin, what a story, and what a life, and what a legacy. Medal of Honor appreciation was this week on Tuesday. 33 of them from Alabama. Red Irwin, he committed an act of valor in the war, but he lived a life of legacy. He came home, he lived large, he raised a family that is still changing the world today. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there you have it. If you didn't know the story of Red Irwin, or by the way, if you love the Irwin brothers movies and didn't know the connection there, yeah, they're from Alabama. They live in Nashville area now, but the reality is they are from Alabama, and they are a part of the legacy of Red Irwin and the heroics that General Hap Arnold said were the absolute bravest in the records of the entire war. Amazing story. Amazing injuries. You could see his scars the rest of his life, but it didn't stop him. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, it's JP here. Unfortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he will not be here to start the show. Hopefully he should, keyword should, be here throughout later in the show, hopefully. But in the meantime, here's a best of from last Thursday's show. Enjoy.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Several of y'all already have. Come on, give us your feedback. Love to know what your thoughts are. I got to tell you, too, attorney Stan McDonald, so he is the partner, or he's the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue every single day. So Stan McDonald, listen, I know the guy personally. He's a great guy. Yes, I do believe that he is a kind of attorney you might be seeking. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law, but you might want to know this, too. Stan McDonald can not only advocate for your legal needs, he's been an absolute warrior in the politics and the policies that Rightside ruffians care about for years. I mean, like for decades. He's like an OG ruffian. He's been around for this for a while. Attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend, and likewise your adversaries would have no greater foe. So here's the deal. If you want to get in touch with him, I'm going to tell you how. You ready? Give you his phone number. Attorney Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer & Lee. He's an America First family man. He's an attorney. Here's his phone number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Appreciate that. And, oh, yeah. No representation made. The quality of legal service being performed is greater than the quality of legal service before other lawyers. Come on.
That was like a 9 almost there.
No.
That was like an 8,
What?
8,
Stop
7.
it. Really?
That was really good. Yeah.
Sweet. Let's see what's going on in the text lines over here. TL from Huntsville says, a very patriotic monologue, Phil, suitable for Thankful Thursday. He said, here's one to get you started. Quote, acknowledging the goods you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. Eckhart Tolle. Wow. Yeah. He said, I'm thankful for heroes like Red Irwin. Thank you, TL. Appreciate you, man. Jeremy from Madison says, magnificent monologue, probably your best. Thanks for the tears of joy. Wow. Wow. Russell from Rural Route 1 says, wow. Thank you, Phil, for that great monologue. I'm still a little choked up. I'm saying, man, you ought to be trying to be the one giving it. And then Junebug checks in, says, thank you for sharing the amazing story of Red Irwin. He was a well-deserving of the Medal of Honor. I'm thankful on this Thankful Thursday for the men and women who have sacrificed for our freedom in the United States of America. And it says, including you, sir. Thank you, Junebug. Appreciate you. All right, you guys, Thankful Thursday. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. ruffians out there. You are listening to Rightside. You are listening to Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right.
Hey folks, it's JP here. Unfortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he will not be here to start the show. Hopefully, he should, keyword should, be here throughout later in the show, hopefully. But in the meantime, here's a best of from last Thursday's show. Enjoy.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. Goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. Down to that loveliest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching across the border to what is now recalled Fort Benning, Georgia. And then even big old chunks of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Glad of it, too. Glad of it. All of y'all out there. Love you. All right, text lines, like I said, are open, 833-687-4448. A couple more of those I didn't get for the break. I'll just tell you real quick. John from Huntsville says, Phil, amazing monologue. Definitely one of your best. Thanks, John. Also, he says, JP, why don't you know Alabama's going to lose to BYU tonight because I just filled out my second chance brackets and I picked Alabama to win it, which means they'll definitely lose because Alabama always lets me down.
But then you canceled it out, tell me they're going to lose. So which one is it? Which one is it?
Y'all are some suspicious, you got all kinds of different beliefs going on right now.
I'm definitely suspicious.
That's not the word we're looking for. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's blanking on me too.
There's a word totally
there literally is a word for it.
We got a brand new texter in the line right now. Eva from, it's Diane from Eva, Alabama. Says, my name's Diane McRae. I'm retired Air Force. I had the great privilege to hear Match Sergeant Irwin speak at a dining in several years ago. Wow, how about that? Even greater privilege of meeting him afterwards. A friend snapped a photo of us deep in conversation. It's one of my most treasured possessions. How about that? Diane, thank you so much. Thank you for your service, and we're glad you're in the audience. JT Lacey Springs again. He says, today's monologue drives home Thankful Thursday. Without people like Red Irwin, these Thursdays wouldn't exist. Also, Friday should now be called Fabulous Friday.
But by the way, if you guys ever want to go back and listen to the monologue, you can go to our podcasts on anywhere you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, whatever. If you guys want to go back and listen to a podcast or a monologue you really liked, you can go back and just listen to our podcast. Look up Rightside Media, and it's there, so you can listen to it whenever you want.
Absolutely, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, it is, and video too, by the way. Mm-hmm. There's the word. We got 3 people in a row just texting to us.
Obviously, yeah.
Thank you, Brian S. Thank you, Rhett from Danville. Thank you, TL. It's superstitious. Why were we stuck?
I don't know.
It's like we got stuck on a word we couldn't get out.
I would have been able to say it if you didn't get stuck. You getting stuck made me get stuck.
I'm paid to use words.
Yeah, exactly.
I still got stuck. Last one, Jim from Athens says, hey, Phil, have to share an unexpected reunion of 2 brothers, 2 of my uncles. Both were stationed in Germany, but didn't know the other was there. They saw each other walking down the street on opposite sides. Can you imagine the reunion? He said, plus my dad was on the LST-41 headed to Japan as a 19-year-old. Wow. How about that, man? Jim from Athens, appreciate that and appreciate their service. Thank you very much. All right, let me jump on into the first topic here. So calling it tariff time. Listen, have you noticed that liberals are doing everything they can to just scream? I don't, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but there's like a new thing right now for the left to use profanity when they like I don't mean like a little bit. Like we're talking members of Congress in the U.S. Senate thinking it's suddenly cool in their official, statements to blend in like some of the basest profanity.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's been an uptick in that lately from them.
I'm not going to say that I've got virgin ears, so but I'm also not going to say I've never used a word that I shouldn't use. But I've also always been of the mind that if your lexicon is so limited that you have to outline it with profane words, then you need to go back to school. Because you're obviously missing something in your ability to communicate.
I don't think you should say in a committee in a session of Congress there's got to be some decorum.
How about some professional decorum? Exactly, professional decorum, please. All All right. Anyway, that being said, that's all liberals seem to have these days. They don't have a plan. And by the way, they're saying this, not just me. I mean, like Van Jones is on CNN and MSNBC saying the exact same thing. You've got James Carville saying the exact same thing. They have no plan. Their plan right now is to scream and to shout and to say, mean Trump, bad Musk. That's their plan. The biggest thing they've had has been that Signal app that, the mishap we had last week or earlier this week where a reporter was tagged into a sensitive Signal discussion among members of the National Security Council. And that's going to blow over by Monday, I guarantee you. Because it was bad, but it's the nothing burger compared to what they're trying to make it out to be. My point in saying all this is that's all liberals have. Meanwhile, it does appear that what I would have to call the Trump agenda is actually working, like really working. I've got a piece here. In fact, let me find it real quick. The numbers that, by the way, JP, did I do I did send you I did. It's for Dipper 3 though, isn't it? You know what? I'm gonna jump. Pull up audio 2, please. That CNN piece. I'm gonna go to that. But let me tell you this. While he's pulling that piece up, it relates to what I'm about to say. Piece here I pulled off the Daily Caller, Dateline yesterday, 2 days ago. It's CNN chief data and analyst Harry Enton, which I think is the one in this video too, showing that, like inexplicably, how do we go with this? But you know what? Apparently, the percentage of Americans who believe the nation is on track has actually surged under President Trump. You think? It's the polling of optimism. A survey from Marist polls published earlier this month said that 45% of Americans say the U.S. is on the correct trajectory. An NBC poll found that 44%. So basically what they're saying is multiple polls are saying, look at this. People are generally speaking rather positive. Marist said 45% saying they're on track is the second highest they have ever measured since 2009. What does that tell you? Democrats can scream and shout all they want, but apparently the general public is saying, we don't see the problem. We like what we see. You got that audio? Go ahead and play that. How long is that, by the way? Okay, let's go and play it.
I think sometimes it's important to do a little bit of reality check and take a little different spin at the numbers. I'm going to do that right here because all we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024. What are we talking about? His net favorable rating right now comes in at -4 points. Compare that to where he was when he won in November of 2024 when he was at -7 points, or March of 2017 when he was at -10 points. So when you compare Trump against himself, he's actually closer to the apex than he is to the bottom of the trough. And of course, that's so important because Donald Trump, historically speaking, has had his numbers underestimated. So I think it's very important to compare him to himself to understand he's actually more popular now than he was when he won, or certainly where he was at this point back in his first term. The bottom line is Trump is more towards the ceiling than he is towards the floor.
So when you do that, it makes my knees hurt. So when you look at this compared to sort of historically, what does it tell you about the percentage of folks that think the country itself, with him at the helm, is on the right track?
This, I think, is rather important because, again, if the polls have historically underestimated Donald Trump, what is a metric that might get at understanding at how popular he may actually be? So let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers. What are we talking about? According to Marist, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Marist has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof. And if you were to compare it to when presidents have historically been reelected, of course, Trump is not constitutionally eligible to run for re-election, but I think it sort of puts it in perspective. 42% of the country says the country is on the right track when the incumbent party is re-elected. And also keep in mind, back when Kamala Harris lost and the Democrats were turned out of power, Only about 27 to 28% of the country said the country was on the right track. The bottom line is right now, a much higher percentage of the country says we're on the right track. And finally, Sarah Seidner, I want to put it all in the congressional generic ballot.
What about Congress? No.
What about Congress? Because those are the folks who are up in 2026. And take a look here. The Dems versus the Republicans on the generic congressional ballot. Back in November of 2020, when Democrats won, it was +5 Democrats. Tied in November of 2022, +1 in November of 2024 when Republicans maintain control. And then you look at March of 2025. This number looks a lot more like 2022 or 2024 when Republicans won control of Congress. The bottom line is, yes, Donald Trump's approval rating is lower than compared to a lot of his predecessors, but it's higher when compared to himself. A lot of folks say the country's on the right track, and the generic congressional ballot looks a heck of a lot more like when Republicans win than when Democrats win.
Wow. Okay, first of all, no more Red Bull for that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, old boy was wired up.
He was.
He was like a caffeine giant. Everything he was saying, I was proud to hear it, and I was still getting anxious listening to him. But I say, listen, I wanted you to hear that first of all. Keep in mind that is a CNN analyst. All right, and he even started off by saying, as much as we bash Trump, we got to talk about the numbers. So what's his point there? The point is that the talking heads in the mainstream media and the Democrats themselves do not want you to believe that things are going well, and yet the polling clearly indicates that the American public believes that things are going well. That the numbers, I mean, can you imagine? On one poll, it's the highest it's been since 2009. On the other poll, it's the highest it's been since 2004. Y'all, we're talking about one of those polls is over 20 years of data. It's one of the highest it's ever been. What does that tell you? The Democrats can scream all they want to about Signal App. They can scream all they want to about Elon Musk. They can scream all they want to about defunding NPR and DOGE and all the things that are happening. They can try to key your Tesla in the parking lot. They can do all the things they do to try and, organize these stupid town hall events and scream at people. But the reality is this. They are barking up a tree. That's all they've got. And they are not paying attention to the fact that them not having a message and the Republicans having a good message is doing them no good right now. And so I'm going to talk in a minute about, I said all that to lay the foundation for where I'm going with tariffs. Democrats, if you noticed in the last couple of days, new tariffs are in place. And have you heard the Democrats complain about the tariffs much? You really haven't, have you? They spent more time worrying about whether Elmo was going to get kicked off of PBS and more time worrying about what the Signal app said. Funny thing is, they're really not saying much about the tariffs. Why would this be? Two reasons. One is the United Auto Workers are loving the tariffs, first of all. So their union base is like, y'all need to shut up because these tariffs are going to bring more jobs to America. Oh, crap. Our base likes Trump. And then the other thing that's happening is the economy is improving in spite of the fear of tariffs. I got more on this when we get back from the break. You're going to love this. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Fortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he will not be here to start the show. Hopefully, he should, keyword should, be here throughout later in the show, hopefully. But in the meantime, here's a best of from last Thursday's show. Enjoy.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're back in number one of the Triple Dipper tariff time. Trump announced some new tariffs, and I'm going to tell you about those in a minute. But let me tell you before I even do that. Notice how I'm laying the foundation for everything. There's a method to my madness. So I pulled a piece off of Street Insider. From investing.com. So, JP, I'm going to go ahead and just put you on the spot.
Okay.
Hey, JP.
What's up?
How much do you think, in terms of dollar signs, has been committed for investment into the United States from industry and tech and all of that to build new stuff in the U.S., bring jobs? New commitments.
It's definitely, it's got to be well over $1 billion, right?
Ooh, wow. How about $3 trillion?
Holy smokes.
So, the list of companies and investing in the United States as part of Donald Trump's push to reshore, not restore, but reshore. In other words, bring it home, put it back here in the continental United States. To reshore manufacturing continues to grow. On Monday, for instance, the Trump administration added Hyundai Steel with a $20 billion U.S. investment. They're building a $5 billion steel plant in Louisiana. AI chip giant NVIDIA announced an investment of $100 billion in the United States, and pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson announced a $55 billion investment. Trump calls it the golden age of America. So let me list some of the companies for you. First of all, the United Arab Emirates says they're going to commit $1.4 trillion investment into the United States. Saudi Arabia, $600 billion. Apple, $500 billion. NVIDIA, I already said, $100 billion. OpenAI, Oracle, $100 billion. Taiwan semiconductor plants, $100 billion. Johnson & Johnson, I already said. Eli Lilly, another pharmaceutical, $27 billion. Merck Pharmaceutical, $1 billion. GE Aerospace, another $1 billion. These are all adding up, and what you're seeing is that's all new. That wasn't like kind of in the works and Biden just didn't get a chance to close the deal before he left office. No, this is all stuff that people are looking at it going, oh, look what Trump's doing. Oh, you know what? Looks like an awful good time to build something in the United States.
Can I say real quick? It's funny to me that Apple, being an American company, is having to invest money in America with how much they were building outside of America.
Oh, yeah. They were in China and everywhere else.
It's crazy, yeah. So not only is it for other, global companies, but our own companies.
Well, but you bring up a point, and I remember somebody telling me this years ago when I was the chair for economic development in the state Senate, is, people talk about, why do you have to compete? Why are you competing for jobs? Why are you competing with other states? Well, states to states do that. Well, nation to nation does that. We have a global economy, and the United States especially has a global economy. And that being said, you can look at Coca-Cola. They happen to be an international company whose main headquarters just happens to be in Georgia, but they are a global economy company. So when you've got these global economies, they look at themselves differently than we look at them. They look at themselves as, what's good for our bottom line? Where can I go next? How do I set up shop somewhere where I can make the most profit margin for my investors and my shareholders? And they go do what they go do. That's why Trump's doing things that brings them back here.
Yeah.
On the one hand, he's putting their arms behind their back a little bit with the tariffs and saying, you might want to build here, otherwise you're going to get tariffed. He's also saying, oh, by the way, we're going to be very business friendly. It's going to be a great tax environment. You might want to build here.
Yeah.
And then what it's also doing is it's driving the states, like Alabama. When I was with economic development in Alabama, or the Committee on Economic Development, we would look at ways we could incentivize. And we're not talking corporate welfare. I hate it when people say that. corporate welfare. You give me no. It's a big difference when you say, if you'll build here and bring a whole bunch of jobs, we'll give you a tax abatement, but you have to meet certain milestones to get it. That's called a clawback. So all those things said, the global economy that we're in requires nations to become business friendly to get the jobs, even if they were originally U.S. companies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Apple did what it had to do to make money, but, that's props to Trump to bring them back, like you said.
And there you have it. And that brings me to my next story. Townhall.com dateline yesterday. Trump announces tariffs on car imports. Wow. 25% tariff on all cars not made in the United States. Okay, this is going to be a big deal. Now, keep in mind, Toyota, Hyundai, Honda, they're all built in Alabama. You got Mercedes built in Alabama. You got all
Toyota in Huntsville.
Oh yeah, you got Toyota Mazda in Huntsville. You got Lincoln, Alabama, just down the road from where we're sitting right now. Honda. You've got a Mercedes plant near Tuscaloosa. You've got the Hyundai plant down near Montgomery. We are by the way, we're the new Detroit. Alabama is. Mm-hmm. But that being said, cars that are not built in the United States, 25% tariff. And we go look at it, and Trump says this is a massive story. Businesses will be coming back to the United States. They don't have to pay tariffs. He also said it's going to cause cars to be built in one location. Rather than starting it in Canada, sending it to Mexico, finishing it out in the United States, he says we're going to have one place, one build, and get back to building cars in the U.S. I got more on this. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, it's JP here. Unfortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he will not be here to start the show. Hopefully he should, keyword should, be here throughout later in the show, hopefully. But in the meantime, here's a best of from last Thursday's show. Enjoy.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a thankful Thursday. Thankful Thursday. That's where we are right now. All right, so tariff time is what I'm talking about. Is it crushing the economy? Is it everything that the market said would just be bad for us? Well, so first of all, I understand market fluctuations. They're based upon fears and concerns, and people will sell short and buy, low, and they'll try to, just work their angles and predict and, basing it on futures, and I get it. However, right now what we're seeing is that, generally speaking, the economy is still trending in a good direction in spite of the fact that we now have tariffs, like lots of tariffs. Like I told you a moment ago about Trump putting a 25% tariff on car imports. And we just had a caller a moment ago. Who was that that called in, JP?
His name escapes me.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My apologies. He said he didn't want to talk on there, but, he brought up that fact, yes.
That what?
So I think he said 93% of automobile parts come from outside of the nation. So this is not just a tariff on cars, but car parts.
Okay. All right. So imports in general for the auto industry is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. All right. There you go. How about this one? Trump slaps a 25% secondary tariff on countries that are fueling the Venezuelan regime. So you may be asking, what's a secondary tariff? That's where we put a tariff on any country that does trade with someone we said is sanctioned. So in this case, Venezuela, who has been letting, MS-13 and Tren de Aragua come into our country like crazy, flushing out their own jails to get rid of the ones they don't want, sending them to America. Initially refusing, now they're finding out they have to accept the repatriation of their own people back to their country. Venezuela, who is actually, under the Nicolas Maduro regime, socialist, is quite the world generator of oil and gas. Their energy exports are pretty solid. Well, they now have a 25% tariff. The tariff takes effect next Friday, April 2nd. Well, that'd be Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. So Wednesday, April 2nd, a tariff goes into effect, 25% for any nation that does trade for oil and gas with Venezuela, putting more pressure on the socialist regime, according to a piece I pulled off of Drew Berquist's blog site. Yeah, and listen, the bottom line for this is Trump is looking at, and I say it on the show all the time, but go ahead and use this. I mean, take what I'm about to say right now, and anytime you're having these conversations, somebody's like, I don't know about these tariffs. They kind of freak me out, man. Is it going to hurt us? I don't know what's happening. Go ahead and wow them by saying, well, you know what this is. It's part of the DIME acronym for the exertion of foreign policy. And they'll look at you like you have 3 eyes, but here's the explanation. Once again, DIME, diplomacy, intelligence, military, economic. Those are the 4 means by which you project foreign power. So when our State Department is doing something, when our Department of Defense is doing something, when our economics are doing something like tariffs or import-exports, trade wars, we're dealing with trade imbalances, all those things, when we take the upper hand on any of those, we are exerting one of the aspects of DIME, but you don't do just one, you do all. So, for instance, the situation we've got right now with Russia, you're going to wind up seeing things like sanctions on Russia, which creates secondary tariffs and sanctions on others that do business with Russia. Russia wants to do oil exports. We'd rather people buy our oil and gas. So tariffs on Russia, that's the economic piece. But then again, they don't want us providing military support or intelligence support to Ukraine. Guess what? We probably still are. And oh, by the way, we're going to sign a deal for mineral rights in Ukraine. And then, oh, by the way, there's diplomacy. We're the ones saying things in the diplomatic arena that Russia's finally having to listen to. All aspects of dime. Well, Trump's doing that with tariffs. He knows what he's got. He knows that he's got the ability with an upper hand right now in the world economy to say, you know what, you want to do business here, you got to quit trying to take advantage of us. You know, for some reason, just because you think we have the biggest checkbook, that means we're the biggest suckers, and that stops. And so Trump is saying, guess what? Secondary tariffs on anybody who buys oil and gas from Venezuela. Sorry for your luck, Maduro. I already got that one mixed into another story, so I'll skip it. And then here's the other thing I pulled off of CNN. CNN is hating the fact that they're having to say good things about Trump. It's really burning them. You know what? And I'm loving the fact that it is.
Yeah. I mean, they got people like Scott Jennings, so they're not completely lost, but yeah.
Scott Jennings is like a war horse.
That guy earns his check every week.
Yeah, he does.
And they actually had to give him a pay raise too, which I bet they hated doing that.
Did they really?
Recently, he got a bit of a boost in his pay, so at least they're acknowledging it. So
that's probably because somebody said, "Hey, Scott, you want to come work for us?" And he looked at CNN and goes, "Hey, they're calling me over there." No, Scott, don't leave.
Like Fox News, maybe.
Yeah, our ratings are centered on the fact that you're willing to say things on our network.
Yeah.
How about this? CNN, Dateline 2 days ago. Headline is, Trump's latest trick could make tariffs more palatable. What are we talking about? Well, I'm not going to argue the finer points of this. There's a lot of little backhanded compliments in here in this article. The end result of this is what they're pointing out is that Trump's notorious within the art of the deal, and he's already doing it. He's notorious within the art of the deal to come in hard and heavy, and then once he has put the other side on its heels, begin to find the places where he knows he can let go. Listen, I can't tell you how many times in a lawsuit, like a mediation, I've gone into a mediation knowing that we want to be here, but I'll start off way up here, knowing that my threshold of pain is actually down here. That's what Trump does with tariffs. 25%, oh my gosh, until somebody comes to him and says, we're willing to do this. Oh, your country will? Well, you know what? The rest of the world's about to watch you get rewarded for that. So I'm going to drop it back down on your country because you're willing to do something else with us that also helps us. He just got something. They got to maintain their status quo if you get down to it. They thought they were winning, but they really was maintaining a status quo. In the meantime, the rest of the world's looking at it going, oh, crap. So if we give something to America, then we can avoid all these tariffs. That's what CNN is saying that he's doing. They're saying that literally he's notorious for the tough sell. He goes in hard. And sometimes it sends financial markets spiraling, they say. Sometimes it angers the CEOs. But then he finds his softer spots soon thereafter where he can say, I can work with this piece, but I'm still going to do that. They're even talking about some carve-outs. Like carve-outs are when you see something as a blank slate. You're going to do all of it, every bit of it. You're going to whitewash the whole thing, and then you carve out one piece which you won't do. You give this group an exception. So the bottom line here, folks, I'm just telling you, tariffs, they are scary in name. They're not scary in real life, but so far they actually appear to be working. $3 trillion in new economic commitment to the United States. How about that?
Well, you said, Trump starts at the extreme end and works backwards.
Yeah.
So when he does that too, any little bit of, quote, compromise is still probably going to be much better than what, like the bottom line, bottom line level. Like if he starts at the extreme end, okay, I'll back off about 5% if you can do this.
Yeah.
That backing off 5% is still a good chunk better than what, the bottom line is. So it's still a win. But I hope these tariffs cause the U.S. to be producers instead of consumers. Was that, like, Trump made a great comment of, you walk down the street in America, you'll see, cars like Volkswagen, like crazy, that are foreign made. You walk, in Germany, what are the odds you're going to see a Chevy or a Ford? It's not very high. So hopefully this will cause, America to be more of a producer globally than just consumer of taking everybody else's stuff. Maybe some places like Germany or elsewhere can start having some Chevys, some Fords, over there. That'd be, something. So hope, America could be more of a producer than just taking everybody else's stuff.
I would agree. And what's crazy, too, is when you look at the fact that there are American-made vehicles sometimes in other countries, but they're different than what we have here.
Yeah.
Because we sometimes micromanage ourselves to the nth degree.
Yeah.
That's a whole other dipper right there.
Is, yeah.
Speaking of which, now I'm thinking about, so I'm through with my stuff. My stuff's done. My resources are over the side. Now you got me chasing a rabbit.
Yeah.
Can I chase a rabbit?
Sure.
Okay, moment of personal privilege. Here we go. Did you know that in the mid-'60s, when Ford unveiled the Mustang, it became a worldwide phenomenon? It created the entire pony car market, they called it. And they actually had foreign exports. So you could buy Mustangs in Canada, Australia. You could buy right-hand drive in Australia, and you could buy them in Germany. But they found out when they got over there was already a vehicle called the Mustang at the time. I've forgotten who made it. So they couldn't use the name. So the only place in the world where you could buy a Ford Mustang not called a Mustang was Germany. It was called the Ford T5. And they are now very collectible. Ford T5s, sometimes there were service members who would buy them and then bring them back home with them when they came home. So I'm a huge Mustang fan.
Yeah.
My first car, 68 Ford Mustang. And I'm told that when we first moved to Germany when I was a baby, somebody came to pick us up at the airport in a Ford T5, and I threw up in the back seat.
That's hilarious.
And I don't know why I'm telling you that whole story right now. It just felt like chasing a rabbit.
It was instinctive.
It was. It just came to me.
Well, my first car was a Mustang too. When I was 5, and my parents got me one of those toy Mustangs to drive around the cul-de-sac.
Okay. Nice.
and our neighbor, who was a cop, decided to pull me over for speeding while I was driving in the cul-de-sac with the Mustang.
Did he flip the lights on and everything?
He flipped the lights. I was like, "Sir, you know how fast you were going?" I was like 5. I was like, "No."
License and registration, please.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break, JP. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Ford T5. That's just good stuff, man.
Hey folks, it's JP here. Unfortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he will not be here to start the show. Hopefully he should, keyword should, be here throughout later in the show, hopefully. But in the meantime, here's a best of from last Thursday's show. Enjoy.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Several text messages to clean up here real quick and stay caught up with you guys. Don't forget, coming up here in a few minutes, bottom of the second hour, it's a Thursday afternoon, Thankful Thursday. We have Butters and Lee coming up. Phil from Athens checked in. He heard my monologue earlier about Medal of Honor winner Red Irwin, and he said, hey, Phil, what'd be wrong with having a segment each day for 32 days to celebrate the other Alabama Medal of Honor winners? It's not a bad idea, actually. Well, I mean, you could actually take a month. Actually, we're not here on Saturday and Sunday, so you wouldn't take a month. But yeah, that's a very cool idea. Phil from Athens, thank you very much. David from Huntsville says, the mission was completed and successful, so what's the point of sharing the entire chat transcript with the committee? David, you're on a totally different track, brother. I'm not even talking about this right now, but I see where you're going here. He's talking about the signal thing. We'll probably jump back on that more later on. Oh, no, that's right. I did talk about it earlier when I was talking about how Democrats had nothing else to yell about. I see it. I take full responsibility. Dave from Capshaw says, don't forget Volkswagen has a huge plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Lynn from Knoxville says, I haven't paid attention in the past few years, but they used to have a Ford F-100 in Mexico. Did they really? Toyota also has a truck now. I think it's Toyota. That the whole truck, $13,000 brand new out of the factory. And yet it's just doesn't meet, quote unquote, U.S. standards. And so it can't be sold here.
The heck?
Listen. I've seen it multiple times on social media saying, why do we do this to ourselves?
Exactly.
I mean, it looks like a great little work truck. I mean, that's what it'd be. Of course, in some of the places where it's at, it's probably got machine gun mounts on the back of it, and Somali warlords running around in it, they call them technicals. Hey, I gotta do a quick thing of breaking news here. So this is off topic, but it was worthy of pointing out. There's a breaking news story. I'm looking at it on Fox right now. You may recall that Congresswoman Elise Stefanik from New York had been nominated by Trump to be the UN ambassador for the United States. And the news breaking right now is that Trump has officially asked Stefanik to withdraw from that nomination, not because of her, but because he's very concerned about the razor-thin majority we have in the House and the fears that her seat would not be hers. She's from a purple area. She's from an area where it's generally Republican, but they've also got some crazy rules in New York. There's a state law about how do you replace somebody. And apparently it allows party chairmen to have a say in it as opposed to doing a full primary with the vote of the people. And so Trump's words were, with a very tight majority, I don't want to take a chance on anyone else running for Elise's seat. The people love Elise, and with her, we have nothing to worry about come Election Day. There are others, though, that can do a good job at the United Nations. He basically said the Trump agenda needs her in Congress, and so I've asked her to step down. I haven't seen where she's responded yet. Some people are mad that she stayed in, and maybe she should have already gotten out. I don't know. I mean, listen, I can't blame her for seeing a gig she wanted to be a part of. But the reality is she's been a Trump ally, a Trump loyalist for quite a while. She's going to do fine. I hate it for her because she probably had her hopes set on doing something like this. But she's going to go back to Congress and stay there and help get the agenda through. And Trump's going to find somebody else to run the UN job. In case he calls JP, I'm really not looking for that job, just so you know.
Oh, okay. I'll let him know.
Yeah,
he actually called earlier today, so I have to call him back.
Was I busy at the time?
Yeah, you were busy.
That's too bad. All right. All right. So, yeah, there's that. Breaking news. Elise Stefanik will not be the nominee for the United Nations. We got on the stuff we're going to do here a little bit, too. I got to tell you, some of these stories I'm going to want your feedback on, all right? Like NPR and PBS, why do we fund them? Why? I mean, think about why they were made. They were made at a time when, there was access to certain parts of television for schools, for others. It was not otherwise available. Same is true with radio. It gave a voice that what might not otherwise have reached. But in today's modern era where everybody can stream everything on their smartphone, you have to look at it and go, is it really necessary for us to keep spending billions of U.S. tax dollars, especially for organizations that are so incredibly biased, by their own admission, incredibly biased to progressive left policies? Why is half the nation voting for Republican and then funding NPR? I don't know that it makes any sense. I'd love your thoughts on it. But I'll be honest with you too, NPR, never much in my life, but PBS when I was a kid, I mean, it was Sesame Street. There was this show that used to be called Zoom that was on. There was Mr. Rogers. I mean, there was a time in my life when PBS in some form was on every day. And it was just an accepted part of the day. Now, that was also before I had 172 channels on cable I could watch. But all I'm saying is PBS, NPR, they may have had their place, but you have to wonder, has their time come and gone? We'll talk about it more in a little while. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Folks, it's JP here. Unfortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he will not be here to start the show. Hopefully, he should, keyword should, be here throughout later in the show, hopefully. But in the meantime, here's a best of from last Thursday's show. Enjoy.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all don't talk about this show. Goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to the loveliest little town on the plains we call Auburn, stretching across the border to what is now renamed as Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right, it is time to bring in a couple of folks who mean a lot to this show. They provide so much. Sometimes you don't know what all they do because they work in the background, but then sometimes they come out to the foreground, and we like to do a little segment every single week with them. So let me do the roll call. The dynamic diva of pure punditry, the Rocket City maven of madcap mishmash, Lee from Huntsville. Are you there?
Wow, I'm here. That was amazing.
Just wait for the rest. The silky smooth like hot honey, the warlord of waxing poetically, the backseat driver of prowler planes, Butters. Are you there?
Excited to be here, sir.
Hit me some whoop-whoops for Butters and Lee. All right, you guys. Just listen, nobody gets introduced like you guys do. Nobody.
I love it.
If you want that in writing somewhere, I'll sign my name to it. All right. First question. Here we go. So NPR and PBS, they get billions and billions in taxpayer dollars, but they also have a real definite left-leaning bias. So here's my question for you after the hearing they had before the DOGE committee in Congress yesterday. Is it time to defund NPR and PBS? Lee, what do you say?
Yes, I definitely think that, especially NPR, because you're talking about just, every single person on staff being a leftist. And this is, someone pulled it up and they're all registered Democrats.
Yeah.
So, all of them, not some of them, not most of them, but 100%.
Yeah. 87 people on staff, all registered Democrats, every single one of them.
Yes. So I consider that propaganda at that point. So I think for sure NPR, if what they're putting out is good, then they can find, people to buy ads. But and I think what we give them is something obnoxious, like 500 million or some crazy number like that.
Yeah, it's madness. And then if you added it up over the years, wow.
But PBS, I think it could remain, but because it is a learning tool for children, and there are some people who don't have cable who can't afford it. I get it, but it's got to be balanced. You cannot have these cartoons pushing these wackadoodle, political ideologies, and I think it would have to be much more centered. You'd have to have a board determining content, and that would have to be made up of a mix of people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would really have to craft that to where it would not be so left-leaning. But also less money. So that maybe I could take. But NPR, it just needs to go away.
So you're like NPR, no, and then we got PBS, maybe. All right. So Butters, what say you, buddy? You NPR, PBS, what do you think? Keep them or let them go?
Well, have you heard of this little thing called the internet?
Yeah. How about that?
So, back in the day, I can see pretty solid argument, the education side, some basic information. When you've got few channels, you've got radio stations, but now, you basically have free dissemination of information. There's plenty of folks putting out educational content. Even on the PBS side, look, if you can't figure out, like, go get your kid on YouTube and find them some stuff to entertain, and it'll cost you nothing. If you can't figure that out, then us spending a bunch of money on PBS ain't going to help. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely
YouTube,
it's time to get rid of them.
Yeah, go ahead, Lee. What do you got?
I said you got to be careful with YouTube, Butters. YouTube stuff that's rated G for all audiences will shock you. You got to be careful with that.
You're getting into the weeds on the point of the the programming. My point is the need for government funded, i.e., you and me paying for them. It's just not there anymore.
So I agree with that. Here's the one argument you're going to have, Butters, against that issue is that the left is going to say not everybody has internet. And we saw this, by the way. It was real during COVID when everybody was told to go home and log in. A lot of kids lived in remote areas and did not have adequate, internet. So what do we do?
Then let's get after getting them internet.
There you go.
That will change their lives.
So
that
take the money we were putting into NPR and put it into high-speed internet for everybody.
I mean,
we're getting them Starlink or something.
You know what? That makes more sense.
Yeah, and by the way, NPR, speaking of YouTube, I'm looking at their channel because I was curious. They're not even that great at their job because they've only got 600,000 subscribers. So they must not be putting out that great information, given all the other large.
That's because they don't want
audiences.
You to get off the TV. They want you on the TV. They're trying to don't do that. So listen, I totally agree with you, but I think there's going to have to be some curtailing of the manner and means by which they message. I mean, we got things like, drag queens doing story hour on PBS, TV shows. What they call that? The dude called himself Little Hot Mess, and he had the book, The Hips on the Drag Queen Go Squish, Swish, 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 and he's doing a whole show. That's got no place in a kid's network. And then, some of the subliminal messaging they stick into Sesame Street now, and then the pro-vaccine stuff they slip in. It's just it got nuts.
I think if you go rewind 20 years, 30 years, the differences in opinions wasn't that as varied as it is now, and you could probably come up with a little bit more mainstream. Middle, everybody wasn't as crazy, but we're so crazy now. I just don't even trust them to try and figure out. It's just better to get rid of it and solve the problem a different way.
And both of them, by the way, I mean, the infrastructure is there, and they've got the United States government is only part of their funding source. They've got tons of outside benefactors. How many times have you ever seen? Like if you watch Sesame Street as a kid, it would say Sesame Street is brought to you by the so-and-so foundation. There's always somebody getting their name out there as being a big sponsor. I got to think that some of if they're that important, some of their rich benefactors will either A, step up, or B, buy them and create what they wanted to out of it because the infrastructure exists.
Now, give the taxpayers back their money and let them choose for themselves if they want to pay Kirk Cameron to make some content for some underprivileged kids and give it for free. Then that's great. That's the way it should be done, not through the government.
All right. Point. Actually, you know what? Lee was easier on that topic than you were, Butters. Usually it's the other way around. She's usually coming in like hard, fast, and scorched earth. And I think you just laid down some rounds on that one. All right. So next question. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the gift that keeps on giving. So she called Texas Governor Greg Abbott is in a wheelchair. And she called him Hot Wheels, thinking that it was going to be cute and funny. And she said a lot of things, too, like somebody needs to knock Elon Musk in the head and blankety-blank this and blankety-blank that. She's Little Miss Diva. Here's my question for you. Is it time for her to be censured by Congress, or should we just let her keep on running? Butters, you first.
Let her show her true colors. Is it egregious and awful? I mean, it's crazy. And my only hope would be that you could allow her so much rope that she could hang herself, that even more of the folks, left of center keep on jumping over to the right going, these people are nuts, and get rid of them. If you sit down and censor them and then it's free, it just provides publicity. I think better to get the publicity of being outright ugly and ridiculous and turn more people off.
Lee, what say you? Jasmine Crockett.
Yes, I think she should be censured, but by more of the way she speaks on the House floor than the way that her denigrating someone in a wheelchair. I find that abhorrent.
Yeah.
I think she's low class. I think she's trying to pretend that she's some sort of hard ass, snapping fingers, rolling neck, eye rolling, all on business black woman, but she just comes across as a buffoon.
Yeah.
And she thinks she's coming across as tough, and she's not. But what bothers me is she's saying cuss words on the floor of the Senate, of the House, and no one's, if we start doing this, if we lose decorum, where does it go from there? I just think that she should be censored for that.
Yeah, in some ways it has been lost, but it's been lost on her, that's for sure.
In some ways, but she's just making it worse. And I think someone needs to jerk a knot in her and say, stop acting this way. This isn't even who you really are. We know who you are. We've seen the earlier videos. We know this is all put on. Cut the crap. That's what I would tell her.
Yeah,
but
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, denigrating someone in a wheelchair is sick. And she obviously has a very unenlightened mind.
Well, she is a buffoon. She beclowns herself on a regular basis. I'm of the mind that they should censor her because the House has to maintain order and decorum. They have to have accountability. Otherwise, they get into anarchy. And next thing you know, we're going to look like some third world country's parliament where they get into fistfights on the floor. And so I do think they have to censure her. At the same time, she's also the best thing going for the Republican Party right now. She's like I said, the gift that keeps on giving. Every time she opens her mouth, it's one more soundbite to help Republicans raise money. So
I'm just worried that you censure her for this, then if somehow they get control back and they start censoring because we use the wrong pronouns, because to them that's as egregious as calling somebody Hot Wheels.
I don't know they can carry that forward because the House rules still have to play, and the House rules are going to govern, and they're not going to censure for something she did in her personal life. They're going to censure under the House rules, and the House rules are not going to say anything about pronouns. So I really think that they still have room to do this.
How did we get to a point where any government body has to debate on what the definition of a woman is? So we're living in a crazy land right now.
You're changing topics now, but yeah, that's the Mad Hatter's Tea Party right there. All right, that is the end of round one of Butters and Lee. We're gonna take a break right now. We'll come right back and switch gears. I asked them the questions in round one. They pinged me with questions in round two. I just hope I got an answer. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, it's JP here. Unfortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he will not be here to start the show. Hopefully, he should, keyword should, be here throughout later in the show, hopefully. But in the meantime, here's a best of from last Thursday's show. Enjoy.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're approaching the top of the second hour, and we're going to round 2 of Butters and Lee. This is where they ask me questions, and I just wait and see what you got. So, ladies first. Lee, what's your question?
My question's about the supplemental nutrition program, SNAP.
Yeah.
Lately, they have been people pushing to have soda removed, amongst other things, from SNAP, from being able to purchase it. People may not know this, but there's a lot of items you cannot purchase with SNAP.
That's true.
There's, a list already. So it's not without precedent, right? But I also think there's other things that should be removed from SNAP. I'm wondering what you think about this, because to me, if we're paying for someone to have money for supplemental nutrition, it should have nutrition in it.
So I don't disagree with that. When I was in the Senate, we actually started looking at where SNAP and EBT cards, could be used. And we had just taken over from the Democrats, and so we were able to get hold of some information we had not had before, and you could see like EBT cards being used in strip clubs. You could see it being used in liquor stores. You could see what it was being used for, in a variety of ways. And then also one of the biggest tricks is to go in to buy $50 worth of something and then immediately turn around and refund $25 of it, so you got $25 in cash and do whatever you want to with. And so we had to put a stop to a lot of that stuff and limit it on not being able to be used in places. We actually sanctioned certain places you couldn't use the EBT cards. That being said, so I'm a firm believer that if the taxpayer dollar is going for something, it needs to go for what the something is. If the something is for nutrition, if it's for being able to build a well-rounded meal, if the law says that, then it needs to do that. And then you can begin to question whether soft drinks should even be included. Now, here's the other piece. I don't want the government micromanaging every calorie. I don't want the government saying, look, we're going to give you something, but boy, it's going to have so many stringers on it, you won't even know what to buy anymore. So there's a fine line here, but I am of the firm belief that the taxpayer dollar needs to have good stewardship attached to it. I just don't want the government getting so ridiculous that next thing you know, we have to use paper straws and, whatever else. It's just, it gets nuts at some point. So there's my long-winded answer. Did that get you?
You didn't say whether or not you thought they should remove soda.
Oh, I didn't really say. I said that I felt like we shouldn't micromanage every calorie. Sodas, no, but then again, I'm not really keen on whether we have to take those out or not. I don't think those ruin the entire diet. But if all you're doing is buying sodas, we got a problem.
Yeah, but that the problem is that people on SNAP buy 3 times as many sodas as people who buy it on their own money.
Well, then let's take some of that PBS money and re-educate them. How about that?
Amen.
I think they should be removed.
Okay. All right.
Well, in all seriousness, though, the education of nutrition in our world today is egregious. So, it's not a bad idea. Actually, teaching people a bit about
which is part of the Maha thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I agree.
But there's YouTube, Butters. You can just go on YouTube and find 5 million cooking videos.
well, now you can, because they took Mr. Kennedy off for a long time. So
better run out of time here. We're going to run Butters, what's your question for me?
All right. So you're telling me.
I'm telling you.
You're telling me.
I'm saying
that this group of folks that have executed government so far, and better than anybody I've seen, accidentally lets in one dude who happens to work for a magazine or a news outlet that's very anti-Trump into a text conversation, which, oh, by the way, those dudes no thumbs up emojis, no, liking, no just slang talk. A bunch of dudes getting ready to go kill some Houthis, and that's a crazy accident. I don't know. I don't know.
So first of all, could it have been an accident? Yes. Was it a bad thing? Don't ever let it happen again? Yes. Was it mission critical? TS level, no, but it was really, really sensitive, and it was probably no foreign material, no foreign, entities could be allowed to. It's for your eyes only kind of stuff. But then here's the other piece. I said on the radio yesterday, I cannot help but wonder if this was a counterintelligence move. If this was an effort to see what happens if we let someone in, what will they do with the information? And then go make something of it afterwards. Or, oh, by the way, maybe clean house when you realize who they leaked to. I mean, what if they felt like they were checking to see whether or not this guy Goldberg was going to immediately call and give information to Rashida Tlaib, who was going to then call her friends in Palestine or the Houthis. I mean, it makes you wonder if this was a counterintelligence move. And you notice how there's nobody seems panicked in the Trump administration. Now, behind closed doors, they might be freaking out.
Well, so there's so many folks that don't understand. I mean, as I understand it, which Signal came along after my time over there, or the last time I was over there.
10 seconds.
But it's used. I mean, it's used for stuff like that because of the lack of other easy equipment.
That's right. So, it's actually pre-approved and pre-installed on their government-issued phones.
And it's an extremely low threat environment. So I'm just not buying that this was purely on accident.
I look for the counterintelligence coup to come out of this. That's what I want to know. They want to know now who Jeffrey Goldberg. You got to find out if they have a FISA warrant on Jeffrey Goldberg, and they're going to see who he called right after he got on the Signal chat. Woo, that's going to be interesting. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Butters and Lee, love you both. Thank you much. Y'all stay tuned. Hour number 3 coming up. Hey, all you Right Side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
Hey folks, it's JP here. Unfortunately, Phil had some lawyer duties he had to take care of today, so he went.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Thankful Thursday. Thankful Thursday, we call it. And I'm about to kick off Dipper number 2, which is called Why Do We Fund NPR? That's the name of the Dipper. Why do we fund NPR? And PBS, by the way. But before I even get into it, we got a call that came in during the break, and she's on the line right now. Anita from Patton, Alabama, on this very topic, I believe. Anita, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, number one, I was going to tell you, I love this show.
Thank you.
The other one is we're discussing NPR and PBS.
Yeah.
I remember growing up and watching Saturday morning cartoons and the School of Rock. I told JT that I didn't think he knew what it was, and he's the one that told me what the name of it was.
Schoolhouse Rock, there it is.
Right, when I was in school and we started studying this, I already knew it because I'd heard on TV, and I'm 60 years old, and I still remember them.
Oh, my gosh, I can still sing Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function? And
yes.
I'm a Bill.
And, the Bill of Rights, yes, they're great. I mean, I'd love to see something like that stuck in the middle of some cartoons. If it has to be supported by the government, take NPR and PBS's money and do that.
Well, I agree. Hey, and by the way, did you know? I did a thing on this. Gosh, I guess it's been sometime in the last year. They tried to come out with a sort of a modern version of Schoolhouse Rock, and it was so filled up with wokeness that it failed.
Yeah, don't put woke in it. Just do it as it's supposed to be. Just the information. Don't put the other crap in it.
That's exactly right.
But I think that would be great because, like I said, I'm 60 years old and I remember this still to this day.
Well, I just turned 60 and I can sing half of them on the air right now. But
exactly, I know it. I know them.
Well,
but I just thought when you were talking about that, I said I would love to see that again. I'd love my grandkids to grow up seeing this.
By the way, you can. I did find out you can get those on like YouTube. I've actually gone and checked.
I saw them on.
Yeah.
I saw them on like Facebook and YouTube stuff. But I mean, put them out where the kids are on Saturday morning.
I get it, Anita. Thanks for the call. Appreciate you. Thanks for being in the audience. You're a right side ruffian. Appreciate you.
Thanks. Bye.
That she's right. I mean, I could listen. Conjunction, junction. What's your function? Picking up phrase and making up words and making them phrases. About Zero, you're my hero.
I watched that exact one in school.
Oh, there you go. I'm just a Bill. Yes, I'm only a Bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. What else have we got? I could just sing them all day long, man. I love those things.
Those are the only two I know, so I couldn't help you out with the rest of them.
Some of y'all out there right now are starting to sing them in your heads, and you know you are. Totally. Listen, Anita's right. I totally agree. Now, that kind of stuff I could see. If you're gonna say PBS is about that again, which I got to look back and think. I'm trying to think. Was Schoolhouse Rock? Was it on PBS or was it on just Saturday morning cartoons? Like, because I watched it on Saturday. By the way, there was a day, for those of y'all that don't remember, JP, you being one, if you wanted to watch cartoons, it was either Saturday mornings or a little bit after school in the afternoons when you got home. For me, it was like afternoons after school. I was a latchkey kid. I walked home from school by myself, had a key that hung around my neck on a string, and I let myself in the house, and I immediately turned on Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island and Batman reruns.
So it was on ABC during the Saturday morning.
ABC Schoolhouse Rock.
Saturday morning children's programming block.
It was perfect. I say go get it. Don't even bother redoing it. You don't have to redo it. It still works. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Picking up words and making them phrases.
Do we trust them not to make it gay somehow, though?
Listen.
They made Sesame Street gay.
I'm going to go. Yes, they did. They tried to make Bert and Ernie partners.
I was a Bert and Ernie kid. I mean, that Sesame Street was that, and Elmo was my favorite cartoons growing up. So I
was a Grover fan.
Bert and Ernie were not gay. Okay, they were not.
Kermit the Frog here. Cookie Monster, Big Bird.
Then it changed into SpongeBob as I got older. Big SpongeBob kid.
I never got SpongeBob.
Oh, man. SpongeBob is the greatest cartoon of all time.
I look at SpongeBob and I think somebody was smoking crack when they came up with that cartoon. SpongeBob SquarePants. Here, I got an idea for a cartoon. What do you want to do? SpongeBob SquarePants. Hang on, let me smoke something first. Yeah, that sounds great.
That was the greatest cartoon of all time, in my opinion. Iconic.
Oh, my gosh. People are checking in right now. Brian from Huntsville, Schoolhouse Rock. Trouble is, it would be in Spanish, subtitled in English nowadays. Wow, dude. Wow, that was like, Brian, come back to us. Stephen from Athens says, how about the History Channel? That'd be good. That's right. I'd say go for it.
Okay, but then the text before it said PBS said it in their ads. If we don't do it, who will? How about Discovery, A&E, etc.?
Yeah, History Channel, all of it. I think they would. So just merge some of that into those for-profit entities and you know what? Survive in the open market. This is sort of like, to me, I feel like I'm chasing a bit of a rabbit, but it is my topic. It's also my show. I can do what I want to.
Yeah.
But so let me just say, like for instance, the green energy stuff, the green new steel, I like to call it. If electric vehicles could support themselves and the market supply and demand, if supply had a demand side that was equivalent to what the government forced onto the market, EVs would be all the rage. But they're not. They're a minor part of the overall automotive market, and they will continue to do that until one day they have built themselves into the better mousetrap, but they can't keep being propped up with government dollars. The same is true with NPR and PBS. I think their mission has largely passed. I think the day in which they existed because there was no other way for some kids to get that kind of educational stuff. I mean, we used to use PBS in my school. I can remember it was audio AV. Go to the AV room and check out the TV on the cart and roll it down the hall. And they'd plug it in, and you'd play something on PBS. And sometimes it was like a classic movie that had a lesson, and you learned it, like the Scarlet Letter. Sometimes it was a book reading. Sometimes it was an arts thing. But they did things during the school day just for schools to use. And then the afternoons, they had shows like, I remember one called Zoom. I loved Zoom. Come on and Zoom, 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 oh, Zoom. I mean, I just love that show. And then Sesame Street. And gone are those days. Go back to your mission, or realize maybe your mission is gone. How about that?
Well, the few times I've caught in a cartoon, like as I'm channel surfing or whatever, they suck.
Yeah.
The cartoons are not good anymore. And not obviously what they're putting into it isn't great anymore, but also I feel like the quality is not as.
They can't all be SpongeBob SquarePants.
And they don't make them like they used to, I guess.
You're in your 20s saying that. I'm 60. How do you think I feel? Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, I think JP ought to watch Johnny Quest. Oh, see, now, all right, we are definitely chasing a rabbit, but you will never beat Johnny Quest and his buddy Haji and his dog Bandit and his dad. And then Race Bannon, who looked just like Mike Pence.
I'm looking at it right now.
Traveling around just like Mike Pence. When Mike Pence first became vice president, I saw somebody put out a picture of Mike Pence next to a cartoon image of Race Bannon, and it said, Donald Trump makes anime real.
We've never seen them in the same room at the same time. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, nice. All right. Johnny Quest. Excellent. Crystal from Moulton says, in reference to Lee's question earlier about sodas being bought with Snap, she said, I've seen a guy buy a buggy full of 2-liter sodas at 4:30 a.m. at Dollar General, and the lady that works there said he pays with Snap and then resells them for cash. She said it happens all the time. Lee was dead on with this. Got to get back. But she says Lee was dead on with this. Got to back my diva chick. I got cousin Crystal and Lee from Huntsville ganging up on me. I do not like this.
Well, then John from Huntsville is just the text below is bashing Lee on the same comment.
Oh, well, let's read that one. Lee is completely wrong, John says, about soda ruining somebody's diet. I consider myself a lifetime soda addict. And when I was a student in high school, I was always below or average weight. And my PE teacher always got mad at me for turning down water and walking to the soda machine. I think he was jealous because soda didn't affect my weight size like it did his. John from Huntsville. How about that? Jay from Hartselle says, when I was young, my family was on food stamps. Back then, it was very limited as to what you could get. I can remember watching my friends drinking a Coke and me dreaming of having one. So yes, set limits on adult items, but take it easy on the kids. For whatever reason they're on EBT, it's not their fault. Jay, you're an overcomer, brother. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it very much. Badger from Athens. What is he doing there? Is he sending me?
He's definitely singing a song.
He's singing a Schoolhouse Rock. There's a Schoolhouse Rock here, and I got to think what it is. 1, 2, 3. I'll think about it in a minute. John from Harvest says, Phil, it's definitely time to defund NPR. It had a bias for a good while. I've had an uncle that used to refer to it as National Pinko Radio. If PBS would ditch the woke garbage and go back to their programming style of a couple of decades ago, I wouldn't mind it staying around for some of the children's stuff and some of the concerts. Okay, fair enough.
Well, so you saw NPR's, the head of NPR, I think, was testifying before Congress a couple of days ago. I think it was yesterday.
I've got the whole thing right here.
Yeah, so I think one of the questions was somebody asked her if she knew that 90%, I think it was, of NPR's staff is left-leaning.
Oh, yeah?
90%. And she goes, well, if that's true, then that's concerning. Well, it is true, and it is concerning.
Well, he pointed out that in the D.C. office alone, in the D.C. office, they had 87 employees, all of which were 87 registered Democrats. What does that tell you? That
tells you it's an indoctrination right there.
We're going to play a sound clip from her in a few minutes, by the way. I was about to say something. Oh, you know what? PBS does have a show that I like. And I haven't watched it in a while, but I used to be like addicted to it. Before there was American Pickers, there was Antiques Roadshow. I love Antiques Roadshow.
I think I've seen that a couple of times.
Antiques Roadshow. I was fascinated. People would bring their stuff in. Here's Grandma's, liquor bottle, and I need to know it's worth something. And they'd look at it and go, well, what you have here is a liquor bottle from 1892. It's very rare. If you were to sell this at auction tomorrow, it'd be worth $5 million. I mean, they had crazy stuff. Things that Dad brought home from World War II. You know, the painting that they didn't know was actually by a famous artist. Anyway, Antiques Roadshow was very cool. I believe it still exists. Dave from Capshaw, Alabama says, don't forget Sesame Street has gay characters. PBS is available via antenna. Let it sink or swim on its own. Dave, thank you for putting a capstone from Capshaw on what I was saying a minute ago because I forgot to wrap up my comments. The reason I brought up the Green New Steel stuff is because the EV industry can't stand up on its own without taxpayer subsidies. The same is true right now for PBS and NPR. They apparently can't stand on their own. Let them go out and compete in the free market, and if they survive, it'll be because they've got the better programming, period. And then they'll quit doing all the woke crap because no one's going to tune in on a regular basis to watch Drag Queen Story Hour with Lil Hot Mess talking about shaking his hips in front of children. If you gotta actually survive in the market without government subsidies, you're going to do things a different way. While I'm on a roll, let me keep going. Jerry from Decatur. Eyeball popping information, both Citgo Oil Company and Vetero Oil Company sell Venezuelan crude in the U.S. Remember the oil leak in the Gulf owned by BP? It's almost, okay, where are we going here? He said Trump tariffs definitely is not good news to the Maduro regime. Airborne. Jerry from Decatur, thank you. Thank you very much. And then Mike from Coxey says, yes, Colonel Phil, Sesame Street used to stand for something, but today, Sesame Street writer Mark Saltzman says Bert and Ernie's a gay couple. That just needs to go away. Yep.
That just drives me up a wall. Bert and Ernie are not gay.
They're not.
They're not. No.
They didn't come out of the closet.
Listen, I knew Bert and Ernie back in the day. We were friends. We were like this.
I knew Bert and Ernie before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know for a fact they're not gay. You can't tell them what they are.
Ernie collecting bottle caps. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Cool guy. Rubber Ducky.
Yeah.
Rubber Ducky, you're the one. Rubber Ducky, you're so fun. Okay, I'm sorry. Ken from Harvest wants to know, doesn't Disney own Sesame Street now? If they do, I'm not aware of it. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about that. I have not heard that. We can check that out. And then last one before we go to the break. Jim from Athens says, hey, Phil, share an unexpected reunion of... Oh, you did tell me that. I read that one. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, we got to go. Man, y'all are some texting machines. Man. All right, listen. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Going to jump into more on this NPR PBS thing. Why do we fund them? Why? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, NPR, PBS. So NPR and PBS CEOs were asked to come testify before the DOGE committee in Congress yesterday. I've got a soundbite here for you. It's a short one. I think we have time for this. I ran long on my last segment, but I'm going to keep this going a little bit. So the NPR, first of all, the NPR CEO, what's her name? Catherine Mayer. She has made some egregious comments in the past that clearly indicate she has a liberal bias. Not like a little bit, like a lot. Like, being addicted to white supremacy and, and talking about how she now admits, by the way, that NPR did not cover the Hunter Biden laptop story. And she admits a failure in that part because allegedly they do news and they chose not to do that story. And then we got the whole thing about PBS having a drag queen story hour time. It's just nuts. So how about this? Let's listen to one quick line of questioning where Catherine Maher of NPR is confronted on her own tweets in the past. Play it.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
Nice try. That's what it was. Sure, we all buy that. Except what she's also doing that is in the middle of another line of questioning about her talking about her tweets or being asked about her tweets where she announced that she was addicted to white supremacy. And she also was asked about tweets in which she said that, she was glad to have a day off of work so she could read a book called The Case for Reparations, which she denied recalling ever reading, and yet she tweeted that she had read it. And that book was, by the way, about monetary reparations. So, I mean, listen, that's who's in charge. And we're talking about what one lawmaker, Daily Wire quotes, called, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene actually called the anti-American airwaves at PBS and NPR, called them radical left-wing echo chambers. It's a crying shame. I mean, there are some things in there. Like I mentioned, I still like Antiques Roadshow. Very cool to watch for me. I mean, I'm fascinated by it. But the truth of the matter is you've got Representative Tim Burchett, Republican from Tennessee, pointing out to Catherine Maher again how in 2020 she was tweeting out that President Trump was a racist and a sociopath. That's the head of NPR saying President Trump was a racist and sociopath. Her response to that now is her feelings have matured. Her ability to view the world has matured. Sure it has. In just, 4.5 years? Great. We'll come back and wrap this up. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
Hey folks, this is JP here again. So Phil will not be coming back before the end of the show today. We appreciate you guys bearing with us through this rerun. I see all you guys' texts, by the way. Sorry we're not able to get to those today, but we appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, appreciate you guys listening. And Phil will be back tomorrow. So enjoy the rest of this Thursday rerun, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew, goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa all the way back over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to the loveliest little town on the plains called Auburn. Straight across the border to the place we now call again Fort Benning, Georgia. And then there's big old chunks of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, I'm going to the phones real quick because our truck driving brethren, Jeff Rowe from Indiana, is on the line. Jeff Rowe, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good now. Since doing a little stop and go about 30 miles outside of Nashville. But
oh, did we just lose him? Jeff.
Yeah.
Hey, we lost you,
Yes,
man. You
sir.
said 30 miles outside of Nashville, and all of a sudden you went away.
Oh, yeah. It was stop and go 30 miles out. So whatever reason, I have no idea. But broke loose now.
All right. Well, good enough. What do you think about all this stuff, man? What's on your mind?
You know, PBS used to be a good network, I think. It was always kind of left-leaning, but it wasn't just dyed-in-the-wool commie stuff, you know. Like, you know, you had the Reading Rainbow, and then you had, I think...
Reading Rainbow, yes.
Boom, I think, and Reading Rocket. Had several things on there when I was a kid, you know, and stuff, and it used to be pretty good. But it's no different than what the other big three is. You know, they're all liberal leaning and everything. If Fox Network hadn't ever been established, it would all be basically, you know, left leaning stations, I think.
I agree with you. I mean, look at competition right now. Look what happened to all of social media platforms once Musk bought X and changed the rules and allowed people to not, you know, have to be deplatformed for every wrong thing they said, deemed wrong by somebody else. The same is true with the networks. If Fox wasn't there, you wouldn't even have Scott Jennings on CNN. They wouldn't even feel the need to try and pretend they had a conservative viewpoint once in a while.
Oh yeah, that's kind of like I used to watch the old McLaughlin group, and that was a ball to watch. You know, they they had all their liberals on there and everything, but then you know, John would sit there and go, you know, call their names, and then when they got ready to sign off, it was bye bye. You know, I just loved watching that show.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been some good stuff on. I just feel like right now, you got to wonder why half of America is paying for something that makes them, you know, feel like they're supporting the Communist Party or something. I mean, it's that bad at times, and I think it's probably time to. I'm glad they're re-examining. I think it's finally time that they re-examine why our taxpayer dollars go to this.
Yeah, there's too much out there. You know, you're supposed to be putting on the things that, you know, usually don't get funded, like some of the you know, concerts and everything for the arts and everything that people don't really watch that much, but it's got a niche audience.
Yeah, a very niche audience.
Yeah. But like I say, the Antiques Roadshow and stuff like that are all great shows, but maybe we need to just take what's good out of that and send that to the networks that would actually make a profit off that.
Or for that matter, yeah, exactly. Or privatize it and let them you know, have the ability to try and compete with everybody else.
Yeah. If they put on something somebody wants to see, they'll be profitable.
All right,
and
so
then they take
did you
donations,
watch?
So you know.
Did you watch on Saturday morning cartoons? Did you watch Schoolhouse Rock on ABC when you were a kid?
Oh yeah. It was, you know, I watched all that stuff and everything. Oh yeah.
And it stuck with you too, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I'm just a bill.
Yeah.
That seemed like that come on all the time and everything. That and Conjunction Junction.
Oh man, yeah. All right, brother. Be safe on the road. I'm going to wrap up a few bit of information here, but thank you for the call, as always, Jeff Rowe from Indiana.
All right, you all have a good one. I'm off till Tuesday, so I'm going to have a nice little weekend.
Well, you have you a good one then. All right, brother. Take care. We'll see you.
See you, bud.
Yeah, let me put a wrap on this. There's a few of y'all texting in about it, so I'll get those real quick. PBS does not need my taxpayer dollars, says Lisa from Huntsville. However, I will say I have 3 favorite shows that they have showed over the years, and they are You Being Served? Oh, yeah. Keeping Up Appearances and Masterpiece Theater. I would agree with that. I think they also had the British production Downton Abbey, didn't they? I'm asking that. But notice all those are British productions, she says. My kids enjoyed it when they were little, too. And people have forgotten one more kid show, The Electric Company. Yes. So I know Morgan Freeman was on that. I did not know that. And I believe Rita Marie. That's my childhood is coming back to me as we sit here. Shag Nasty, the atheist, checking in, says NPR donor here. I pay for it directly and with your tax money. And we just love it when snowflake conservatives get upset about spending tax money on fair reporting and classical music. The only thing you got right in there was that there's classical music. I'm not sure when you got the right to direct my taxpayer dollars. And oh, by the way, there's no snowflake here. There's just me saying good stewardship means this is a bad way to spend money. And then how about this? Thank you for donating. Thank you for putting your money where your mouth is, Shag Nasty. And if more people want to do that, NPR won't need the rest of my tax dollars.
I like the fair reporting part, too.
Fair reporting. Like Hunter Biden laptop.
Yeah, and they openly admitted it, too, by the way.
Oh, by the way. He did say, though, I say he, she, what? He said, I'd pay for the conservative talk radio if it meant I didn't have to hear erectile dysfunction ads. I can't help you there, brother. That's the station. And then the other one says, ever since my tax dollars bailed out Ford and the banks in 2008, I haven't seen any dividend payments. I'm not arguing with you there, Shag Nasty. We apparently agree. By the way, it wasn't Ford. Ford's the only one that didn't take the bailout. It was the Chevy, and I think it was Chevrolet and may have been Dodge that took it. But anyway. John from Lexington, South Carolina says, PBS also introduced me to Benny Hill and Monty Python. I did not know that, but okay. He says the great thing about PBS in the 70s wasn't necessarily the shows, it was the classical music they played between. It gave me a love of classical music. Fair enough. Jack from Huntsville says, let's not forget the Click and Clack brothers. Wow, we are going deep here. Wow. Gary MS from Huntsville says, FY 2023, Amtrak, the train company, received $3.8 billion in state and federal subsidies. It's just nuts. They can't sustain life on their own, so we just continue to prop them up. Fritzy from Huntsville says, if anyone had an opportunity to see a movie in the theater on a U.S. base, we all stood at attention and watched the Stars and Stripes on the... I did. I remember that. While the anthem played. We need to bring back public patriotism. Fritzy, appreciate you. And then John from Huntsville, Alabama joins you with SpongeBob. Says, Phil, SpongeBob and Dragon Ball Z are my favorite cartoons. They taught me way more lifelong lessons than Schoolhouse Rock ever did. What life lessons was in SpongeBob?
I don't know, but it made me laugh a lot. Brought joy to my life.
Okay, fair enough. Is there a call on the line or no? Okay. All right, listen, I gotta shift gears here for a minute. I'm gonna take some more text messages momentarily because there's a few more of y'all I hadn't got to yet. Text in if you want to, 833-687-4448, especially if you have a Schoolhouse Rock you really liked. This is Thankful Thursday. And we have a sound effect for that. So before I even say anything else, go ahead and play me my Thankful Thursday sound effect.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
Nice. Good job, JP.
Thank you on this
Thank you. Thank you, JP. Thank you. Thankful Thursday. So yeah, we nicknamed this one Thankful Thursday. We got Meatloaf Monday, Taco Tuesday. Of course, the Camel talks to us on Wednesdays. Thankful Thursday now, and then tomorrow is Friday. But that being said, as I was prepping the show this morning, I found a couple of stories. I go, man, I'm thankful for that one. Yay. And I thought, wait a minute. It's Thankful Thursday. I'm going to end the show on a few stories that I'm thankful for. And they're real. I mean, this is like news stuff. This is like things that are happening. A lot of it's happening within, what I would call the golden age that we're re-entering right now of America. And I will point out that earlier in the show, I took something that I was going to hold just for this segment. I thought, no, it also applies to the first segment. And so we played it earlier. I'm not going to play it again. But there's even CNN has been forced to admit that we are in what they call an explosion of optimism. CNN, they are a guy named Harry Inton. He's their polling analyst. He takes the polls, he runs through them. He pulled up 2 polls, one by Marist and one by ABC or NBC. I'm sorry. And he points out, he said, and by the way, if you heard it earlier in the show, the guy has had like way too much Red Bull. He was going wild. But he said that according to the Marist poll, 45% of Americans say that we're on the right track. He said that's the highest that Marist has measured that level of optimism since 2009. He said NBC came in at 44% in terms of people saying we're on the right track as a country again. That's the highest they've measured since 2004. 26 years. Y'all, this is 21 years. That's impressive when you stop and think about the fact that Trump's only been in office for what? Has it been 90 days? How long has it been? How long are we in?
So January 20th, and this March 27th.
Okay, so yeah, we're barely over 60 days.
Yeah, just barely over 60 days.
Almost 70. That level of optimism right now is not just because people are hoping they're going to see something. It's because they are seeing something. And I'm loving this. And as I read stories in the morning, if you noticed, like for instance, there have been a number of sound effects you guys have gotten used to over the years, like jackassery. Here at Rightside, we play these certain sound effects like jackassery. And we have adventures in, oh, thank you very much. And we have adventures in woke world. And we have things like kakistocracy. Kakistocracy is a word that we brought to your attention like 4 years ago that says kakistocracy is truly a word defined as a government run by the least competent of its citizens. Since November, I have not been saying those words very much. And it didn't dawn on me till the other day. It's like, wait a minute, I've hardly even said jackassery. When's the last time I said kakistocracy? I haven't had to play Adventures in Woke World hardly at all. It's been crazy. How about this story? Loving this. Red State. On Tuesday, a federal judge in Anchorage, Alaska, issued a ruling that opens up a vast territory for renewed drilling on Alaska's North Slope. So basically what happened in the Biden administration, the Department of Interior under Biden canceled, didn't just prevent it from happening, but literally went in and there were oil and gas leases that were already being held for development, and they canceled them outright, which is a breach of contract, by the way. They took it to court, Alaska did. Alaska just won. What that means is, and it points out here, it's not just a victory for Alaska, although it certainly is that. It's a victory for the American energy policy and for anyone whose lifestyle depends on reliable, inexpensive energy, which is like all of us. The state of Alaska, according to Corey Mills, their deputy attorney general, said the state of Alaska looks forward to working with the current administration on fully realizing the vast potential of the ANWR to grow Alaska's economy. Y'all, that is just a clear indication that the drill baby drill thing is happening, that we are seeing a complete sea change in our policies. How about this? Tulsi Gabbard, testifying as the Director of National Intelligence for the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence yesterday. Got this from Red State also. Red State was killing it today. Red State, she was asked why in her 2025 annual threat assessment report to Congress did she not include global climate change like the Biden administration had. You may recall that climate change was the existential crisis affecting all of us, and that even the Department of Defense had to address climate change. Gabbard's response was that while the intelligence community is aware of environmental factors and how they could impact certain operations, they did not deem global climate change to be an immediate threat to America. It's a whole new day, my friends. It is a whole new day. I saw that and I thought, I am so thankful. And then I saw this one. Y'all know this show. You know me. I love the military. It's been a huge part of my life. It still is. I don't know if you saw it or not, but yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance, who himself was a Marine, went to Quantico, and he just hung out with Marines. He went out to the range and he shot with them. He went to the dining hall and he ate with them. And it did not look at all like one of those real stiff, stodgy moments where no one knows what to do and the awkward politician tries to pretend they're a real guy. It looked like a real guy showed up and just had a lot of fun. He got what Red State is calling a raucous welcome from fellow Marines. And he greeted them with he got out there and the first thing he did was, "Hoorah!" And everybody knew exactly they had a Marine at the vice president level. He said that he was a proud member of the E4 Mafia, and of course the enlisted guys loved that. He said it was time for the colonels and the generals to listen to corporals for a change. It just went on to, and they loved him. And he talked about how hard it was when back in the day he bought a used Honda Civic on his E4 salary, and and everybody there identified with it. And I'm just telling you, this is a whole new day when we're watching the military, the FBI, the department or the director of national intelligence, the ICE and the southern border, the drill baby drill, listen, I'll be honest with you. The fact that I haven't had to use the cacistocracy sound effect hardly at all in months is a clear indication that we have a lot to be thankful for right now. As conservatives, as right-side ruffians, you know it's true. I ran long, but it's Thankful Thursday. I had to get that in before the thing. I'll come back and take some text messages and take you guys all the way to go home time. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. It's Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just making common sense like a superpower. I got a ton of text messages. You guys are amazing. So let's get a few of those for the top of the hour. Roy from Hartsville checks in, says, great show today, Phil. Keep up the good work. People are learning the truth here. Man, thank you, Roy. Appreciate you. Gary from Leicester, Alabama says, I'm that E4 Mafia also. Semper Fi to my vice president. Nice. What do we got here? Dave from Capshaw, by the way, says in 2020, Nickelodeon announced that SpongeBob SquarePants is gay.
No, he's not.
It says so right there.
You can't tell
Men's
me.
Health Magazine.
I want to hear it from SpongeBob himself. I don't want to hear somebody say it for SpongeBob.
You go to the link and see what it says. Tell me what you find out. Fritzy from Huntsville again says, hey, JP, thanks for the Thankful Thursday sound effects. I'm going to watch some Talladega Nights later on. Jenny from Decatur says, this is all I can remember of Schoolhouse Rock, sing on Gravity. Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that song on Gravity. That's a good one. John the Navy Corpsman says, you have to throw Doctor Who in there also. I had forgot about Doctor Who. When I used to live and work in Houston, I used to volunteer for the very first public broadcasting station, KUHT Channel 8 on the campus of University of Houston, and I am an alumni. Fair enough. Shag Nasty the Atheist again says, I'm thankful for the free press, life, liberty, decentralized internet, unions, and small towns. Okay. Thank you, Shag Nasty. Roughly Ann from Huntsville says, Zoom, Ubba Dubba language. Ubba Dubba. Ubba Dubba. I've forgotten about Ubba Dubba. How about the Man Up song? Remember that? You probably don't know that.
No.
That's Man Up.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Listen, some of y'all
is that
now
Muppets?
That's the Muppets.
Yeah.
The Muppet Show. Kermit the Frog here.
Muppets was great, too. That's not cartoon, but still,
My name is Grover. John from Huntsville saying, Schoolhouse Rock, hey, little 12 toes. Wow. Okay, I don't remember that one. Hey, little 12 toes. That's okay. Anyway, Marcus from Huntsville says, calling a combat-hardened ranger a snowflake? Tell me you're clueless without telling me you're clueless. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate you very much. Badger from Athens sent me a link earlier that I can't go watch because I'm on their show right now, so I can't go watch it. All right, you guys, y'all are amazing. What a great day. Thankful Thursday. Be thankful for something. And by the way, if it's thankful for a person, tell them. Don't forget, by the way, there are more of us than there are them. God is very much on his throne.